Welcome back, tribe. It's your girl, Michelle Jones here. Today is a no makeup, weird hair kind of day. So today we're going to talk about lake monsters. And before y'all roll your eyes and think automatically that we're going to sit here and talk about the Loch Ness Monster for 2 hours, calm down. We're only staying in America. So yeah, just get ready because here we go. So the myth and folklore surrounding sea serpents has expanded worldwide, has been around since the ancient times, of course, and it makes sense. I mean, the ocean itself to me is still kind of this dark, mysterious place. So could there be sea monsters in there? Sure, why not? But what about these bodies of water that are encapsulated by land? What about these smaller places that don't make a whole lot of sense for a giant monster to hide in? All across America, there have been plenty of lakes and rivers and all sorts of different bodies of water that have had disturbing and creepy tales surrounding them. And today we're going to cover at least 2 of those infamous lakes. Now before I get started, obviously it's much more difficult to prove the existence of lake monsters over sea monsters. The monsters that live out in the ocean have plenty of places to hide, whereas if they live in a lake, it's not exactly like they can just keep hidden forever. With the amount of people that go to lakes and, go boating and spend time at the lakes now or live on the lake, it just seems like it would be much harder for a lake monster to actually stay hidden. So once sightings of these creatures stop, we can assume one of 2 things. Either the creature died or it never existed to begin with. So take a grain of salt with these next 2 stories. Okay, first we're going to take a quick peek at Bear Lake in Utah. Now the monster sightings from Bear Lake started back in the 1800s. A Mormon colonist in that area by the name of Joseph Rich, along with 4 other men and apparently 6 women, were all hanging out around the lake and apparently saw this giant serpent-like creature. It all started when they said, I quote, "They saw a peculiar motion in the waves coming in towards the shore." They said that the peculiar motion started about 3 miles off. They thought it was just a wave at first, but then it started to come closer, and all of a sudden they were saying that they saw this 90-foot long, crazy looking animal that they didn't think could possibly exist. Now with that first sighting, a lot of people actually consider that sighting to be a complete fake. I'm not entirely sure why, but apparently that specific group of people didn't have a lot of validity behind them. I don't know. However, in 1984, there was a professor in the Utah area that was going over some artifacts and some journals that were written from the settlers in that area back in the 1800s, and they came across 2 different journals. Now, these 2 different journals belonged to 2 presidents of the Mormon church in that area. And what was interesting about these 2 different journals, on the exact same day, in their own private journals, they wrote about an incident where they were out at Bear Lake and actually saw this creature rise up out of the water, and they could see the silhouette distinctly against the sun. They described the animal, but the weird thing about that incident was that neither one of those men ever reported it to other people. They didn't tell other people about it. They didn't try to create this scandal surrounding it. They kept it to themselves, literally, in their own private journals. So it's kind of hard to say that that is a fake. Usually if people are, creating fake sightings or reports, they're trying to do it to get some kind of fame or attention or possibly even money. But these people never came out and told anyone that. And nobody even knew that they had witnessed such a creature until long after they were both dead. So things like that tend, to me anyway, have more credence behind them because why would they just write that in their own journal? It's not like it got them famous or it got them any attention. So now let's jump forward way into the future. Around 2002, a man named Brian Hershey saw this green-skinned monster-looking creature come up along his boat while he was out on Bear Lake. Now he claimed that the creature he saw had red eyes and humped back. But if there's one issue that I have with most of the sightings surrounding Bear Lake, it's the simple fact that almost every sighting describes a completely different looking creature. So it's really hard to nail down whether or not these people are actually telling the truth. Is it different creatures supposedly in the lake? Is it the same creature and people just are not seeing things correctly? I'm not entirely sure. So someday I'm gonna visit both of these lakes that we're gonna talk about today and do my own little investigation. But until then, we can only go off of what other people have said. And so far, Bear Lake, probably not true. But the locals surrounding Bear Lake love the folklore. They love the legend. They use it to their advantage. Now let's jump over to Montana, where there's a lake by the name of Flathead Lake. I believe the first sighting of the monster in Flathead Lake occurred around 1889, and the witnesses reported seeing something and describing something that sounds a lot like the Loch Ness Monster. A man named James Kerr supposedly witnessed this creature in the full light of day. Now, he was a steamboat captain back in the day, and he had a full boat of passengers, and they were just trucking along the lake, and apparently he saw this creature, like this giant thing, diving, or not diving, but like swimming really quickly through the lake towards the boat, and he was afraid that the thing was going to actually slam into the boat and everyone was going to end up drowning. But what happened was either some of the passengers or some of the crew ended up taking a few shots at the creature while it was surfaced, and then the creature apparently just dove. It just dove and they didn't see it again. Which, in Flathead Lake, I feel like there's more areas for it to hide, because Flathead Lake is apparently 370 feet deep, and who knows if there's like caverns or caves and things like that down there, so it's probably a little more possible for something to be hiding down there. Now, between that first sighting of 1889 and all the way up to 2013, there were about 102 sightings, which honestly isn't a lot given that huge length of time. But the one thing that differs between Bear Lake and Flathead Lake is that with Flathead Lake, the witnesses and the descriptions tend to be more consistent with each other. They're not all over the place. Now, most of the witnesses describe a creature that's between 10 and 12 feet long and leaves probably a foot high of a wake behind it as it's going through the water. Now, some say that it's most likely a giant sturgeon that's being mistaken for some other creature. We know that sturgeons can get absolutely huge, and in fact, that was a theory over with Loch Ness, is that that's what people were seeing instead of some kind of monster. They were simply seeing giant sturgeons. But back in 1960, there was a couple who were out on their private boat dock, I guess enjoying the sun or something like that, and they saw this creature come up to their boat dock and start scratching itself on the dock. They said that this creature had a insanely long neck and that it was able to stand its neck up out of the water about 6 feet. So that to me screams like the stereotypical Loch Ness with the long neck, kind of like a plesiosaur. I hope I'm saying that right. But again, a plesiosaur is an extinct dinosaur, so it's hard to say that that could possibly exist and us not know about it at this point. In 1963, there were about 12 witnesses all at the same time that said they saw a very dark gray-skinned creature with a horse's head and 3 humps along its back, which if it's a serpent makes sense because some serpents will move like this and some will move like this, and you can kind of see the humps coming out of the water. Now, in 1964, a woman by the name of Joyce Nelson and her family were swimming in the shallows of Flathead Lake when several of the family members felt something very long and giant brush up against them in the water. I wonder how far away each of the family members were, because if they were like several feet, a good distance away, and it was one creature, then we can kind of rule out just a big sturgeon, but not sure. There was a huge increase in sightings in the year of 1993. There were 13 separate incidents all in that one year, and a few people claim to actually have seen 2 of the creatures together instead of just one. And the last incident I'm going to tell you guys about is when a policeman... Now, okay, disclaimer. Just because someone's a policeman or a fireman or a politician or whatever does not mean that they don't make mistakes or that they don't sometimes make shit up. You know, people are people. But because policemen and doctor, you know, people like that are usually held to a higher standard and are often even ridiculed if they come out with some cockamamie story about a monster or ghost or something like that. They usually do not start rumors or create any kind of gossip or story or piece of fiction surrounding something like this. So the simple fact that this person was a policeman, to me, gives them a little bit of credibility. However, you never really know. But anyway, the policeman and his family were, I think, driving on the road next to the lake, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not entirely sure. But he said, and his entire family backed him up, that this giant plesiosaur type looking creature rose up out of the lake. It's probably 15 to 20 feet long. And yeah, to be real, I'm sure he got a lot of flack for that in the police department where he worked. So the fact that he came out and said something like that, could it be? I don't know. Now these two stories, these two lakes, are only two in a vast number of lakes, rivers, streams, yada yada yada, that have really creepy folklore and specifically lake monster legends attached to them. There are a ton more in America and in Canada. So if you would like to see more stories, if you would like to hear about different lakes, comment down below and I will make a part 2, maybe even a part 3 to this video for you guys to learn a little bit more about the different lake monsters all over America. Other than that, that's pretty much all I had for you guys. I am going to sit here and drink my lovely hot chocolate in my cute little Sam mug. Yes, it happened. I had to have it. And enjoy the rain, because it's about to rain. It's very overcast here today, and it's kind of cool outside. So it's like in Texas, fall usually doesn't hit until like maybe the last week of October, and it actually doesn't even get cold until maybe mid-November. So the fact that it's cool, it's overcast, I've already busted out the hot chocolate, I have a sweater on today. I'm ready to enjoy this day. I see popcorn, horror movies, and Pinteresting Halloween ideas in my near future. So yeah, I love you all. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to smash that like button and definitely subscribe if you haven't already. Bye guys!